You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Montini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And yes, we're back with a new season, man. Alex, how have you been?
Pretty good.
I'm not going to start off by saying,
I can't break tradition, man.
Well, okay. What's new?
Nothing.
Of course. I hate to do this, but we have to. I mean, a little bit of bad news. Unfortunately, a good friend of the show and regular guest who's been on the show many times in the past passed away. And the freaky thing about it, he passed away July 4th, and that's Joe Burkhart, who many of you know from listening to the show in the past, who's been on several times. Wow, I'm in just total shock.
Yeah, so same here.
It was very low key. I had to go to his Facebook page, and if you don't really pay attention to your news feed, things like this slip by, and I really feel bad because I didn't see anything.
Well, that's just it. The way Facebook is nowadays, it doesn't. They've done something different on Facebook. Like unless you subscribe to someone, and you're not going to get the feeds right away. It's just weird.
And that was the only contact I had with Joe. He very, very elusive, very, very elusive character. Great guy. Really, obviously we didn't always see eye to eye with a lot of things, but you know what? It doesn't matter. That's what made things good. You needed that balance, right?
Of course.
And I like I said, I met Joe. Well, I didn't meet Joe, but I remember first hearing Joe years ago when he had a podcast that he had been doing for a few years, and it just fascinated me that the subjects he would talk about. And it was the paranormal, but it wasn't really. It was more of a personal sort of aspect. And if you guys know Joe, it was always, he was always being attacked by people,
mm-hmm.
And that was because of his views on certain things, and a lot of people didn't agree with him, and I don't know if people were really attacking him or he was just saying they were attacking him.
Either way, that's all like kind of a moot point at the moment, right? But yeah, he did mention that a few times, but whether they did or didn't is not really the point now, unfortunately. unfortunately he passed away, and that's just the way it is, unfortunately.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And tonight we'd like to dedicate our show to the memory of Joe. Like I said, he's been on the show several times in the past. A friend, so the least we can do is dedicate tonight's show to the memory of him. Season 12. We're back with season 12. I'm really looking forward to this season, man.
Yeah, promising to be a good one.
Promising to be a good one.
Yes.
I mean, is there something that you want to explore this year?
You know what? There are some things I want to explore for sure, but you and I will have to discuss that.
Well, we are.
Offline.
Come on, we don't hide things from our
It's
listeners.
not a question of hiding it. It's just a question of whether we're going to do it.
Oh, let me guess. You want to talk some voodoo?
Sure.
Is that voodoo or hoodoo?
Both.
And of course, we're going to have a little short break because you're going to be gone very soon too. You're going to be in the UK.
That's right.
And that's what, September 20th?
I leave on the 20th, yeah.
And you're gone for a few days, right?
Yeah, for a week.
For a week. Mm-hmm. So what have you been up to all summer long?
Wow, just keeping busy, man. Barbecues and more barbecues.
And more barbecues.
Yeah.
And nothing paranormal.
No, nothing paranormal, unfortunately.
But you did dig up a pretty cool story.
I did.
And that's something I think we'll have to look more into.
Yes, we will. Maybe we can shoot a Nocturnal Night Shot episode there.
It's a possibility. I mean, hey, anything's possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, as many of you know, we investigated the Spruce Lane farmhouse. 10 years of research at that place.
Yep.
And it's funny because going through some of the old footage, and it's amazing because if you don't really pay attention to the findings when you first go through them, things will slip through your fingers. And I'm not kidding you, they will.
Yep.
Because I'm telling you, one of the findings from one of the very first visits there back in 2009 yielded something very, very, very intriguing. And you heard it. You've heard it.
Yes, I have.
I mean, what are your thoughts about it?
Well, you know what? It would have been better if it had happened while I was attending, and then we got it right after.
That goes without
nevertheless,
saying.
It's pretty interesting.
I mean, when I heard that,
especially where it happened.
I mean, again, this was an EVP extracted from video, and the visual is the camera pans. It's doing just some stock shooting of the interior of the house, and the cameraman, who is Michael, he is just panning on this picture of, like, a painted picture of a little girl. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden you see, or well, I shouldn't say see, hear what sounds like somebody, like a little girl singing or saying a nursery rhyme.
Yeah.
It like when I first heard it, I'm like, okay, did I just hear what I heard? Like, come on, seriously? Going back, extracting the audio, and boosting it up and listening. I mean, you really don't have to boost it up that much because you can hear it plain as day.
Yeah, you can. Yeah.
But boosting it up, because I wanted to hear what the audio was. What was it singing? What was it? A nursery rhyme from that period. And we're definitely looking for a historian or an expert on children's nursery rhymes and songs at the turn of the century. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. The 19th century. Because I really, really, really want. Because I mean, you can't really, you hear some singing, but you can't really make out exactly, or at least maybe somebody can, and we're just not getting it.
or maybe you can utilize that to sort of induce something the next time you're there. Like use a nursery rhyme from that time frame to try to sort of induce something to happen.
It's a possibility, but I mean, it's like I said, when I first heard that, it just brought chills to my bones. It really did. So, anyways, we're not going to waste too much time here because we're kicking off the season with a new guest, and I'm really looking forward to having Lon Strickler on, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know you. More than I have been following his blog, his long-running blog, Phantoms and Monsters.
Yeah, I used to redirect a lot of my articles, not my articles. What I used to do when I had the BBN channel, when it was still around, is I used to direct a lot of traffic to his page for a lot of the articles that he had, plethora of information on that website.
Oh, it's amazing, the stories. So we're really looking forward to it. And of course, check out his books. I mean, if you go to let me get the proper
phantomsandmonsters.com.
Phantomsandmonsters.com. You can get all the information about Lon there. His books, and he's got quite a bit of books as well to look at as well. And we're going to talk about all this and more when we come back from break with Lon Strickler. So don't go anywhere. Once again, if you want to follow us on Twitter, you can do so at Dark Discussions. Facebook, facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio, or just type in Nocturnal Frequency Radio in the search box. And what else? Instagram, Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And I want to say BBM, but that's no longer around.
It isn't.
No, it's not. Which, oh well, what can we do? So hold tight. We're going to take a break here. When we come back, we're going to have Lon Strickler. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. Welcome back. And you know what? Of course, we're kicking off the new season 12. Like I said, I'm still in awe that we've actually lasted this long.
Yeah.
In the many different variations that we've had the show, but we're here. We're still here. And I'm really looking forward to tonight's show, and of course our guest Lon Strickler. Welcome, Lon, to the show, man.
Thanks for having me.
Like we were saying in Q there, your blog, Phantoms and Monsters, it's well known. I mean, a lot of people know about it. It's a wealth of information when it comes to stories and information within the paranormal, and it's not just ghosts, but we're talking about cryptozoology, UFO, everything, man. I mean, there's stories in there that people were going like, oh, what the hell? How do you classify that? I mean, let me ask you, let me start off by saying, is there a story that you have tracked down that has totally blown your mind, that sticks with you?
Oh, no, there's so many of them, I'll be honest. I think the one encounter that I had and that I've written about and kind of ties in with a lot of what I've investigated in the past couple of years, it's probably the one that sticks with me the most, and that's the that winged humanoid, red-eyed winged humanoid that I encountered back in 1988.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Now, when you say red-eyed winged, are we something similar to the Mothman, or how? Describe what you're talking about?
Well, it's very similar to what has been investigated in the Chicago area in the past couple of years. We had people have been seeing this humanoid-like being. Dark in color, probably stood around 5 to 6 foot in height. Many times it was described as having red eyes. I'd say maybe 40% of the sightings that had these red eyes. Wingspan up to 10, 15 foot. And sometimes it would let out a scream, sometimes it wouldn't. It was very interesting because the one aspect that was very similar, other than the red eyes, the one I saw, was that this thing had the ability to jettison itself without the wings. In other words, it would be standing and then it's jettisoned like a rocket.
Wow.
Yeah. So, you know, I had that encounter back in '88, not far from where I live now. I'm not far from Gettysburg. So, this was this was autumn of '88, and I ran into an old friend of mine who I had gone to school with, and I had actually been in Boy Scouts together with.
Yeah.
And we got to talking, and we hadn't seen each other for a while. But he knew at that time, and before that I had done some paranormal work, paranormal investigations. Now, you know, I had started doing this. I had started doing that when I was in high school.
Paranormal investigating.
Yeah, and it was in a time when, you know, people never did that. This was the mid to late 70s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like it is now. I mean, people heard that you investigated ghosts back then and look at you like you're crazy. But it was it was something that, you know, I did because I was an intuitive. I realized when I was around 8 or so that I could sense spirit energy. And I had a few encounters, especially at Gettysburg. And, you know, I was there a lot when I was a kid. Yeah. So then that's what I did. And, you know, I would actually go to locations on my own, but occasionally someone by word of mouth would find out what I do and ask me to go investigate something. So this friend of mine was, we had been talking, and he said, look, he said a few of the local troops, and that was in York and Adams County, Pennsylvania, which is around Gettysburg and such. He said a few of the local troops had been camping at the old Camp Conewago, and some of the boys had reported hearing crying sounds. Yeah. And they were spooked, and they would leave their campsites and such. And so they you know, he asked me, he said he and another guy were going to go out that next weekend, and they were going to camp out and see if they could, you know, find out what was going on. Yeah. So I said, okay. Well, you said they wanted to know if I'd go along with them. So I said, fine. I'll go along with you. So I met him and the other guy that next Friday at the campground. You know, it's been a long time since I had been there, but it hadn't changed that much, really, to be honest with you. So we got together. I guess it was, you know, early afternoon, about mid-afternoon, and we went out and started hiking through the woods and set up campsite near the trail along the creek. So, you know, we set up 3 tents and had a fire going, started eating something. It was about 7 o'clock, so we just sitting around the campfire. So we decided just to stick around there for the night. Nothing really happened. You know, yeah. I was, you know, I had a sense at one point that night that something was like watching us. You know, you get that feeling that something's watching. Yeah. So, you know, the next morning was a really nice day. And we got up, sat down for breakfast. And one of the guys asked about hearing footsteps or movement during the night. And I did hear something. I heard something moving around the campsite, and I just figured it was one of them guys getting up, you know, go in the woods or whatever. Yeah. And but I didn't think much of it. So you know, but nothing in the campsite was disturbed or, you know. So, you know, we just said, okay. So we went ahead and started hiking in the woods, and you know, we were out most of the day. I don't think we got back till about 6 p.m. We had going all through that area, and it's a pretty thick woods. It's, you know, it's all virgin woods, and but it's got a lot of wildlife and such. So, as we were going through, we were talking about, these kids might have heard an owl or something, or, they didn't know what was going on that scared them. So, but, it was a nice time. We had a good day. So that later that evening, we were just sitting around the campfire. Actually, we were sitting there talking about football, and we suddenly heard a scream downstream from where we were. Now, this is around 11 o'clock. So we had been sitting there a long time. We weren't drinking or anything. So, we were, we had our faculties to us. But when we did hear it did sound like an owl screaming. But then a few minutes later, it happened again. And it distinctively sounded like a child screaming.
Oh, wow.
So I couldn't tell how far away it was, but it lasted for several seconds, and it kind of faded in and out. So we got up, walked a few yards in the woods, expecting to hear it again, but it was quiet. And for about an hour, we didn't hear anything else. And, we just thought, well, maybe it was a bobcat or something else that was out there, and, we just didn't, we just mistook what was out there making that noise. Mm-hmm. So we decided to stay up for the whole night. And I don't know if it was a full moon. There was a lot of light out there from the moon. So a lot of what in the woods and the creek were visible. So I'd see maybe about 1 a.m. I got up and started walking the perimeter of the camp. And I really got a strange feeling like something was there watching us. So I stood still, tried to gauge what was going on. So I came back and told those guys, I said, look, why don't we get up and walk up the trail a bit, the trail along the creek, and see what we can, see if we can find something. I just got this funny feeling. So, okay. So we each had a flashlight, and, we didn't get maybe 50 foot away from the camp. And suddenly, we recognized to our right, standing in the creek, and the creek was pretty shallow, these two bright red lights or eyes. Wow. And by the time we got the flashlights on this thing, it just jettisoned in the air with this audible whooshing sound. And we heard it scream and then take off, away from, we hear it fading away from us. So, we hurried back to the campsite, and, we were just asking each other what was going on. The one guy, he was just freaked, my friend. He wasn't talking. Then we finally got him to talk, and we all agreed that this thing had red eyes. It stood about 6 foot, and it was standing in the creek. Now, the other guy said he noticed something on its back, which I did too. And we both decided it was probably wings, because whatever was on its back, there was some structure to it and was pretty large. But, we didn't get a real definite look at it. Mm-hmm. So my friend, he was freaked. He wanted to go up to the administration building and stay up there the rest of the night. So he and the other guy, they went ahead and grabbed their stuff and went up there. I stayed at camp because I wanted to know what this thing was.
Yeah.
But honestly, it was really quiet the rest of the night. So I don't know what this thing was. I'd heard of the Mothman for years, and this is back in '88. So the Mothman phenomena was known to a lot of people, and not like it is now.
Yeah.
And so for about 20 years, I hadn't written that much about that. I had talked to people about it occasionally, but when I started my blog up, I wrote about it on the blog. I wrote the story on the blog, and very quickly I started getting some comments. There was a guy who lived very near that location along the creek who contacted me, and he said, for a long time I've been hearing that screaming sound. I didn't know what it was. So back in I guess about maybe a year later, maybe not even that long, but I had a scout leader email me, and he told me, he said that his troop had been out there a couple of weeks before that, and that it was during the day, and he said the kids came running back after it had been on the trail and said that there was a 6-foot tall dragon with wings and a tail standing in the on the trail. And they said it had fur or feathers, but he said they looked serious. But he thought they were just showing off, playing with him. So he just dismissed it. He didn't hear anything, the rest of the time they were there. But he said he read my article, or the article was referred to him. And so, he contacted me to let me know. And frankly, after I initially had written that story, or the account, I had received 5 other sightings along the creek. Now, the other sightings were further downstream, but that creek valley, and it's not big. It's not a big valley. It's not a large creek. It probably extends about 15 miles towards the east, and it eventually empties into the Susquehanna River. But there were 5 other locations along the creek that had other sightings.
What a fascinating story, man. I mean, how at first, what do people think about your story? Like, how did they take it? Like, did they think you're okay? You must be you must have been on something, or what's going on?
Well, I get a lot of questions about what, though it being something that I encountered. I mean, of course, they're going to be a little more skeptical, but frankly, it really confirmed to me after what started happening two years ago back in and around Chicago. Well, actually, the first sightings were in 2011, but what people were seeing was very similar to what I had encountered, and I had always thought it was some type of, I don't know, possible Mothman-like being, but I never really got a real good look at it to identify it as that. But the way it took off, and the way of course the eyes and the whole screaming and such, it was very similar to what people had been reporting. And at this point right now, with the 3 sightings in 2011 and all the other sightings in Chicago, around Chicago, and areas around Lake Michigan, we've got about 85 sightings.
Wow. And why do you think it is? I mean, here, obviously, when people think of, when we get into the Mothman, they think of West Virginia, right? Right. And now all of a sudden you have this rash of sightings in and around the Chicago area. And as you're saying, Michigan. What is it? I mean, why now? And why Chicago?
Well, that's migrating.
Yeah.
It could be migrating, but I mean, when you look at the Mothman theory, I mean, is there something about to happen there that maybe it's trying to warn us? I mean, what could it possibly be?
Well, if you go back to what happened back in '66 and '67 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia, of course, people had been seeing this thing for about a year. Yeah. There had been, I guess, overall, there were 25 to 30 sightings that were reported. And, people were freaked out. But there's a lot of other stuff going on, too. There was UFO activity. Later on, there was this Men in Black phenomena that was going on there, too. Yep. And a lot of other paranormal activity. But, of course, right before Christmas, of '67, the Silver Bridge, which spans the Ohio River between Point Pleasant and Ohio across the river. Yeah, I mean it collapsed, and there were 46 people that were killed in that collapse. And it being a small town, I mean it had been a major tragedy anywhere, but of course being near a small town. out in the boondocks, basically. And people had been seeing this thing, and apparently somebody said they saw it hovering above the bridge near the time when the thing collapsed. The first thing that people were thinking was, well, this was a harbinger. This is something important of some type of disaster. Mm-hmm. And, of course, like I said before, being a small town, a small community where everybody knew each other, it was kind of like something that was used to explain what had happened. How people have to think that there's something behind whatever happened. Though, since that time, there had been investigations that basically stated that there were some issues with the bridge. Yeah. And so, but as far as what happened in Chicago, and believe me, look, when we were getting these reports, I was getting most of them. There were a few other people in my team that were getting them, but I'd say in July and August, that summer of 2017, the word was starting to spread about these sightings. Yeah. And I was getting people literally 20 to 25 phone calls a day calling me, wanting to know what the hell was going on, if there was going to be a disaster in Chicago. And people were scared. I mean, people were really, really scared. And it just wasn't the media. It was just regular people who had heard what's going on, found my phone number, and started calling me. Now, since that time, I don't know of anything that can be really classified as disaster that can be connected to this. These sightings, I believe people definitely are seeing a flesh and blood creature, some type of being. Okay. The sightings are so fleeting. They're quick. It's hard by the time you see it and the shock wears off. To grab the camera and take a shot. We've only ever really gotten one photo of this thing. Yeah. And, people wonder, well, why, everybody's got a camera now. Why can't you take a shot? Well, put yourself in that situation.
Exactly. I mean, let's face it. I mean, when you're in a situation like that and something unfolds right before your eyes, and the first thought is, okay, something is, unusual, but your brain is trying to process it, but it, in the time that it's trying to process it, and you're finally going, oh wow, okay, it's too late. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's what happens. I mean, it's just like people that, they see a Bigfoot or see something else. By the time the shock wears off, this thing's gone, or they get a picture that's so indiscernible they don't know what it is they're looking at. So, And
I mean, that's where a lot of people get that sort of that little bit of doubt too, when they, okay, did I just see what I saw? No, so, no, it couldn't have been.
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of times when I will get a phone call or somebody will send me something, they'll say, you're not going to believe what I saw, and I wish I knew how many people did see something and just never reported it.
Oh, there's probably
it's uncountable, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I mean, it's like I said, in Q, I told you I had my experience, and my experience was pretty much the same kind of sort of scenario as yours, but on a different level sort of thing, I guess. Mine was, I'm walking home, I'm working nights, and I'm walking home in this suburban area. I'm about to cross a bridge that has, it has 2 lanes, and it has a medium in between, separating the two flows of traffic. So essentially, it's 2 separate bridges. And as I'm approaching this bridge, all of a sudden, I see this thing, come up from the far side, run across on 4s to the medium, the grassy knoll medium, and stop and look at me. I see this thing, and I stop myself and go, okay, I don't feel like, getting too much closer to this thing, because I don't know, what is it, a coyote or whatever? I don't know. But I said, I'll just let it take off and go underneath the bridge or whatever it's going to do, sort of thing. Instead, this thing decides to stand up on its hind legs.
Mm-hmm.
Like a human.
Mm-hmm.
And it stood there for probably about 10 minutes before it got back down on fours and took off. But when it stood there, this thing was tall, lanky, and probably about 5 foot. So a little shorter than about a foot shorter than I am, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, it sort of looked like the Toronto Tunnel creature that I pointed out to you, as best as you can as a reference point, minus the red glowing eyes. But this thing just stood there, and it was like it was analyzing me to the point where, okay, no threat, got back down and took off and went underneath the bridge. Now, I have done so much research in terms of animals that could do that in the area. There's some animals that can do that, but there are no animals in that area that can do what it did. Standing on its hind legs like it was human for 10 minutes.
Well, let me ask you this.
I will.
Did it have like a canine head to it?
No.
Okay.
That's what really freaked me out.
Okay.
Right?
Well, I tell you, you're in Toronto, right?
Well, I'm just outside of Toronto. I'm closer to Hamilton, if you know where Hamilton is.
I used to live in Hamilton. I lived there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I lived there for about a year.
Oh, wow.
Between the Niagara area,
up
past St. Catharines, up into Hamilton to Toronto, there have been a lot of sightings of these upright canines.
Exactly.
And as well, there have also been several sightings of these winged humanoids.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Southern Ontario's got a fairly decent history of these strange humanoid-like beings. I have read several beyond what people have sent me. And in fact, there was one sighting that a friend of mine who lives in Ontario sent to me and told me about, which people were calling the Angel. And this thing was a huge winged humanoid. I mean, big.
Wow.
And I had also gotten a sighting of this thing on the U.S. side, just maybe about 5 miles or so past Niagara. So, so I don't know what the hell that is. But we've been getting, we have gotten these sightings over the years. Now, the thing you're talking about in Toronto, or near Toronto, that wouldn't surprise me. Now, I'd have to go back or you could send me what that picture was. I think, like I told you, I think I had written about that years ago, but like I told you, I can't remember what I write.
I'll send you.
Yeah, if you would, I'd appreciate that, because
for sure.
One thing, this is a phenomenon we've been looking at here in Pennsylvania, which is these upright canines, and we're starting to get a heavy population of these coy wolves down here.
There's a crap load,
and there's a load of those around Toronto. I mean, you go out to the suburbs of Toronto, and there are coy wolves everywhere. And I have heard of people have told me that they have actually seen these things try to rear up on 2 legs. Now, I don't know how true that is, but I know there's a lot of coy wolves around there. And it actually, there's been a pretty high population of coy wolves around that area for about 20 years now.
Yes. There's quite a lot of them here. A lot more than most people think. Because when most people see it, they just automatically think it's a coyote. They don't really understand the difference between a coyote and a coy wolf, right? They don't know that a coy wolf is a genetic variation between a wolf and a coyote.
Mm-hmm.
And it is more domesticated than a coyote or a wolf together, because it has that doubling of domestication. So they're not afraid of humans.
Oh no,
Not afraid of humans at all.
I don't think they're as aggressive as either of the other species. They seem
No.
to be more docile, and they're not afraid. Like you said, they're not afraid of being around populated areas.
No. I had an encounter with one about a couple months ago, and it was more curious than anything. And I just grabbed the big, because I was on a little bit of a trail run, and this thing was just staring me down, and I just grabbed this big branch, and I just started whacking it on a tree, and it didn't take off right away, but you could tell it was curious. It stuck around, but I said, whatever. It was by itself. It would be a different story if it was with a pack, obviously.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'd say ever since the coyotes have been moving eastwards here in the States, and of course up in Canada they're doing it too.
Yeah.
They've been basically breeding with pets, pet dogs, and they've been breeding with these timber wolves, and that's why we got these coy wolves, and yeah, you're right. They're not that much difference to them in a coyote, though they're a little bit bigger, a little lankier.
Yeah.
And but like you said, they do seem to be more docile, and we got a bunch of them down here. If you go out, my partner did an investigation up in Clearfield County, Pennsylvania, a couple of years ago, and man, he said the woods were loaded with them up there.
Yeah. They seem to be taking over. They seem to be taking over a lot. I'm seeing a lot more of them. I think I all of this year I've probably seen more coy wolves than coyotes.
I know their population is increasing.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. We're going to take a break here in about 9 minutes, but I just wanted to talk a little bit more about your experience. Now, with your experience, did you go back and sort of investigate like anything that might have happened in the area, or anything in the past that might sort of lead some sort of give you some leads as to what this thing might be?
Well, I did some investigating. I know the history of the area pretty well. This was an area that had a lot of history as far as the Susquehannock Indians. Okay. It was at the Boy Scout camp itself was started in 1919, but the area had a rich colonial history. It was a major hunting route used by the Indians. There were several attempts to establish settlements there, but Indian raids stopped a lot of that. And the Susquehannock were a pretty aggressive bunch, and they warred with a lot of the neighboring tribes as well. But of course, they were eventually forced back into northeast Maryland and Delaware, and the colonists were eventually able to go westward into the Alleghenies. So, but it was an area of a lot of that type of activity. Now, I don't know if that has anything to do with it. Mm-hmm. When you go back and start reading about the whole area itself and the areas where I live at, this was kind of a rogue's nest around here. There were a lot of outlaws who used to hang out in this area. It seemed like anybody got themselves in trouble in Philadelphia or Baltimore ended up in this part of the country. So there was a lot of murders, just put it that way, or a lot of nefarious activity. So, it might have imprinted, I don't know, but, these beings, and, with the investigation that we have been doing in Chicago, I do believe that these winged humanoids, like I said, are flesh and blood, but I think there's definitely an interdimensional aspect to that, because I had two witnesses who told me that they saw this thing literally disappear in front of their eyes. In other words, it was flying. It just kind of went through an invisible doorway and disappeared. And this happened during the day. The one where these two old ladies that saw this thing, actually was like 2 or 3 blocks south of Wrigley Field in Chicago. And they saw this thing flying over the intersection of the two streets and just literally disappeared, like it went through an invisible doorway. And then I had another woman she was with her friend, her husband. This was in Rockford, Illinois. They were out in at their friend's porch, and they saw this thing flying across the street above the trees. And this thing, it just literally disappeared in front of their eyes. So, you start wondering, and people have been seeing these, like I said, they were fleeting sightings. They would see it for a second, and this, the thing would suddenly disappear to where it was, with no trace of it. So you start thinking, like, what's really going on here? So, that's one theory. Mm-hmm. I've always thought that the winged humanoids are, more importantly, the Mothman of Point Pleasant. Because look, these Mothman sightings have not just been at that period of time in the 60s. There have been sightings around Mason County and other counties down in that area of these beings. I have been getting those sightings for many, many years. And but I believe the one that was seen in the area of the West Virginia Ordnance Works, the TNT area, people call it, I think that was a summoned being. I think that thing was summoned by some very, very strong spiritual energy. And I think that spiritual energy was probably related to the Shawnee tribes that lived in that area.
And I was going to say that because if people know about the whole story down there, that there was a curse, was there? There was a curse that the natives had put on.
Yeah, the curse of Chief Cornstalk.
Yes.
But that area in itself has had a lot of warring between the colonists and the Indians, and of course the Indians themselves had a lot of fighting in there too. So it was, there was a lot that happened in that area.
That's incredible.
So of course now with this thing at Camp Conawago and the history that I found that had going on there, I don't know if there's a tie-in, but it very well could be.
It's incredible. And to have somebody, to see one of these and experience it and not report it. Mm-hmm. I mean, because obviously, people are going to think I'm crazy or, try to justify or explain in their head that it was a bird or something that I saw, and realistically they saw one of these creatures.
It's pretty interesting when somebody will see this thing and get on their handheld device, search Google, and of course I've been advertising for people to contact me, and my number comes up and they're telling me what had happened like 15, 20 minutes after it happened. And their emotions, it is so raw. It's amazing. The one aspect of these sightings that I and my team have both found was that these witnesses just did not embellish on what they saw. They told you what they saw, and if you tried to steer them in another direction, they stuck with what they originally told you. And that's unusual.
Well, yeah.
That's very unusual. And that's something we noticed from the very beginning. So, we had a pretty good idea that, people aren't playing around here. They're telling us something they actually saw.
And I mean, when a person has this experience, they really don't know who to turn to. Mm-hmm. And of course, I get stories like that, and obviously you get a crap load of them, obviously. And these people are like, I'm not saying everybody, but most people that come forward with these stories are very authentic.
Oh yeah, yeah. I realized a long time ago, it's best to listen to people what they have to tell you. You make detailed notes along the way. Then later compare the information with other reports and facts. You got to be open-minded about it. You got to initially give the experiencer or the witness the benefit of the doubt. Now, when you're asking questions, be brief. Just to clarify a statement. That's it. Otherwise, the witness can go on a tangent and start embellishing information. After several decades of interviewing eyewitnesses, I believe I'm pretty well established as being able to separate the wheat from the chaff. Let's put it that way. It's kind of like a second nature. But, I have learned that a higher percentage of witnesses actually did believe that they had a remarkable sighting or some type of unexplained encounter, and that they have taken the time now to trust you with that information, and you have become part of their story.
Yeah. Okay, hold it there. We're gonna take our break here. When we come back, we'll talk about the blog, the long running blog, and your books, and much more. Lon, I want to again for joining us this evening.
Mm-hmm.
Folks, hold tight. We'll be right back. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Rondini, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And tonight our guest is Lon Strickler. Once again, thank you for joining us this evening, Lon. It's the first hour is pretty fascinating, and your story about your experience and everything else has been pretty cool. Thank you again for joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
Now, let's continue. Phantoms and monsters. How did that come into being? Because I know a lot of people are probably interested, because they've read a few stories off the blog, and or there's probably a lot of people are listening who are regular readers of the blog, and probably don't know the beginning of it.
Well, I started the blog around 2005. I had been writing for another website for, about 6 months. And at that time, the guy who ran that website told me, he said, you ought to start writing this stuff in your own site, on your own blog. Because, frankly, I had kept records and of all my investigations from the very beginning. And I had actually done a lot of, talk to people about paranormal activity and things they had seen for many, many years. Mm-hmm. When I would go somewhere, I would talk to people, someplace I would stop or so, I'd talk to people. If there's been any location or area around them or things that had going on before. And like I said, I'd go ahead and documented that and kept it, So I had a lot of stuff to start out with. But as time went on and the blog started getting more, because believe me, it took a while before it really started to grab on, I'd say about 2 or 3 years before people really started to get into it. And I was actually offering a free daily newsletter as well, which I still offer. And so I started getting a lot of stuff from people that were just sending me things. And 14 years later, It's it's gotten to where I have around 30,000 or more daily subscribers, and I got a lot of people that just go to it daily. So yeah, it's it's kind of been pretty steady now for the last several years. So but it's something. If you didn't like doing, if I didn't like doing, I wouldn't do it. So you know.
And that's the thing, you gotta have a passion for it. But I mean, like you said, you've been investigating the paranormal, and on what level have you been investigating the paranormal? I mean, I guess before the blog.
It was basically like a hobby for the most part.
Yeah.
And I did actual physical investigations. I actually I'm disabled, so I can't get out like I used to.
Yeah.
That started around 2001, and but I had, up until that time, I had done a lot of investigations. Now, I still go occasionally out to people's homes or locations where they want me to look into something. But and I do also do remote work as well for people who have hauntings, or if they do have some type of cryptid activity going on in their area, I can usually refer somebody there.
Yeah.
I do have a team, the Phantoms and Monsters 14 research team, and I got a bunch of guys here in Pennsylvania, and then we got some people out in the Chicago area, Wisconsin, and I just added another investigator down in Florida. So what I'm going to do is probably have a few more people join up in different parts of the country where there seems to be a lot of activity. So that's where we pick up a lot of incidents from that. It gives us other phenomena to look into. So it keeps us busy.
I bet. There's so much going on.
Yeah, it's it's actually, it does seem that it has picked up over the years. I don't know if it's because of the internet or accessibility to, like, these paranormal shows or whatever information people are picking up. But it does seem that the activity has increased.
Now, what area? Like, I mean, you pretty much cover it all. Is there a certain area that you enjoy covering more than others, like cryptozoology, UFOs, hauntings? I mean, what do you prefer? Is there a preference?
I do prefer the unexplained beings or cryptids. Yeah, I enjoy that more than anything. Yeah, of course I'll do the other things. I probably don't do the hauntings as much as I used to. It takes up a lot of time, and I will stick to a few private cases that I just never report, because privacy issues and such.
Yeah.
But as far as cryptids and strange activity, that's pretty well what I like to work at.
Here's one for you. I remember we broke a case, a story. Oh God, this was 4 or 5 years ago. Anyways, probably something like that. And a guy not too far from here, a friend of a friend actually contacted me and goes, "Okay, I got these really weird photos I want you to take a look at." Okay, and I'll let you know what I'm talking about, right? And in the photos, these photos are taken from a deer cam. The guy had a whole bunch of cams set up on his property to see what kind of game he had in the area, and he had a large piece of property. I mean, there was probably his closest neighbor was probably, I don't know, 5-10 clicks.
Mhm.
He was in a remote area, and so anyways, these the camera that I'm referring to that the photos were taken are on a tree facing his backyard towards the edge of his backyard, which is probably about give or take 20-30 feet roughly, probably more. I'd probably even more. And there's a forest in behind at the edge of his backyard there. So anyways, the first snapshot, you just see some, this corn, like it looked like a cornfield, a field, and it had been cut, and some birds on the ground, probably just pecking at some worms or whatever. And then the next photo, there's this disturbance in the photo, almost like the photo's being manipulated by some sort of energy, but you can't figure it out. And this is within a couple seconds. Like they're like taking pictures like constant, like within. I think there was like a 4-second span. And then the next picture is this picture. You see this. This is this whatever, something in the background, just at the edge of the of his yard, the field, hovering above the field itself, before the edge of the forest. And when you blow up the picture and you're looking at this and you're like, wow, okay, what's going on? What it looks like is a person inside a bubble, hovering above the field. And then the next picture, he's gone. It's gone.
It happens.
Oh, you're telling me.
Yeah,
but,
happens.
when I saw this, I'm like, holy crap. And he was telling me the next day or the next night, he was at work and he got a call from his wife. And his wife goes, You've got to come home now. You've got to come home now. And he's like, why? What's going on? There's something weird in the backyard, and it's hovering back and forth, and it's got a green light. It's hovering back and forth, and it's looking in the window, and it was totally freaking her out to the point where he had to leave and come home. And this was the night after he had captured that thing on camera. Weird.
Yeah, I mean, some of the light anomalies that people capture on these things and actually see in person, are pretty bizarre. There does, the past several years, these lighted orbs, and then they come in a variety of colors and such, but they do seem to bounce around and go, like they're looking into people's windows, or you'll see them out in the middle of the woods, out nowhere out there that anybody is. And we get a lot of those reports. There has been one phenomena that has been going on in recent years in connection with Bigfoot activity, especially here in Pennsylvania. We have gotten reports where people have seen or reported a Bigfoot, and they either saw light anomalies as well at the time, or an investigator would go out there a day or two later, or whenever they got out there, and they would see this anomalies as well. And that's something that has been increasing. Now, there has been a lot of thought about the Bigfoot phenomena being tied to UFO and alien phenomena as well. And, there have been a lot of sightings that have had seemed like it had some sort of connection there. So if that may that may be possible. I do believe that when you're talking about the paranormal, there are a lot of connections between the genres of the paranormal.
Oh, absolutely.
So if as far as people seeing a lot of this, a lot of these light anomalies, it wouldn't surprise me if there was other activity involved as well.
Definitely. You mentioned another, big thing within the paranormal and cryptozoology or whatever, and that's Bigfoot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what are your thoughts on Bigfoot? I mean,
well, I believe it because I saw it.
Why is it so elusive?
Well, that's the big question. Like what is this thing? Of course, there are areas in that they seem to be more prevalent. In particular, the Pacific Northwest. There seem to be actual pods of these beings up into Canada, in the western part of Canada, up in British Columbia, as well as some parts of the deep south. There seem to be areas where these things may actually be flesh and blood indigenous beings. But I think for the most part, and there's a lot of discussion and about this, but I do believe that most of the Bigfoot sightings are of a possible flesh and blood being, but that they are an interdimensional being as well, and that and it's astounding how many reports you get from witnesses who say that they see these things and they suddenly disappear, or they'll follow tracks that just suddenly disappear. There's something going on. Now, of course, it becomes a little more intriguing when you never find evidence of these beings. You never find a body. You never find any other trace other than just footprints, some hair samples, some scat and such. That may be part, the fact that we haven't found a body or of a known body. Of course, there are a lot of rumors of bodies being found and the government takes them, or they're hidden somehow or taken away somehow. But I think the elusiveness of these creatures is the fact that they're probably, for the most part, not part of our Earth plane. I think they're from another reality.
And it's definitely something that has intrigued my curiosity for many years, especially since I was a kid, I guess. And I mean, that's, obviously when you see that original footage there.
Right. Patterson film. Right.
Yeah, the Patterson film, and the lore is pretty much everywhere, and you're going, okay, just to the point where, okay, I'd love to go and sort of not necessarily track one down, but investigate these stories, such as you're doing.
Well, when I had my encounter, I never was particularly involved with any type of cryptids. I mean, I had it in '81, and when it did happen to me, it kind of sparked something in me that I had to investigate it, and I did, and that's what I've been doing ever since. It was part of what I did. I mean, as opposed to just investigating hauntings.
Now, is there like something out there that's being reported that's fairly new that's really intrigued you?
Yeah, recently there's one phenomenon that seems to be gathering some steam. There have been several sightings of it, or of these white or real pale humanoids. Some people call them rakes. Some people call them flesh gates. Other people believe that they're wendigos.
Oh, Wendigos. Okay.
I don't know what they are. I have seen pictures of them in the past. I have received descriptions from eyewitnesses. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the Wendigo phenomena or something entirely different. But for the most part, these are fairly tall human-like beings that are very gaunt and almost remind you of a walking skeleton, basically. But they are very aggressive. They have chased people for whatever reason. Some people say they're cannibalistic. I don't know. That they eat human flesh and other flesh. I don't know what they are, but the sightings of these things have been increasing. And it's something that I've been looking into more and more. I've been getting a lot of reports. The traditional Wendigo tales that had come out, Indian legends and such, were of this cannibalistic humanoid being that many times had horns and such. It looked like a walking deer, but it would be skeletalized, They were aggressive. That they had a lot of supernatural aspects to them as well. These sightings are different to where they look a little more human, but they seem more like a zombie or something like that. If you want to say that, it's very intriguing, and it's something I really haven't looked into. Until recently, and I've been getting a lot of reports of it. So. That's something new to me. I mean, I know of people that have been looking into these things for a while now, but of course, there have been more sightings traditionally in the upper Midwest into Canada. But as far as sightings down here in the lower 58, that's not as hadn't been as prevalent as it's starting to become now.
So you're saying there's been some sightings up here? This thing?
Oh yeah, Canada is where a lot of the sightings would originate from. Yeah,
wow.
I mean, in real deep woods.
That's intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
That's really intriguing. Now here's something that I know Alex is really intrigued with. Your thoughts on the Skinwalker Ranch?
Oh yeah.
Well, Skinwalker Ranch. That's an interesting place. There's no doubt about that. I've known people that have been out there. I've read all of what's available. The Skinwalker Ranch could very well be one of those locations, like a lot of other locations, where there's a lot of activity for whatever reason. Is there a doorway there somehow? I don't know. Is it a cursed area? The Indians believed it was a cursed area. They stayed away from it. Some of the phenomena recorded there have been strange indeed. There seem to be these wolf-like beings, that seem to show up there as well. A lot of UFO activity. It's an area it's been heavily investigated. It's mostly done on a private basis, though I have heard that the U.S. government owns it now.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Bigelow does not own that area out there. They had bought it and held it for many years, but I am under the impression now that the U.S. government purchased all that land, plus a lot of it around it. So I don't know what the situation is. It's pretty hush-hush, but... but you can't get near it. Like even going up to the gate now, you just can't do that. There's a buffer zone around there now,
and that makes it all the more intriguing, right? Jeez, holy! I mean, there's so many areas like that. Well, I shouldn't say there's so many areas like that. I mean, you have the Skinwalker Ranch, and then you get the I don't know if and you probably do know a little bit about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've heard.
with a lot of the stuff that goes on in there. There's so many areas that, it's not just one phenomenon, but several. And again, it leads back to what you were mentioning before, that how many things within the paranormal seem to coincide or seem to exist together and sort of have a connection.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are definitely hot areas. They're not just small areas. They're regions that seem to harbor a lot of strange activity here in Pennsylvania, in particular. The Chestnut Ridge is one area. It's about a 100-mile ridge that runs from Westmoreland, Indiana County, south into West Virginia. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of different phenomena that has been documented there. Stan Gordon's been investigating that area for a long, long time now, and others are, we've got other small areas here in Pennsylvania that are hot, that do seem to get a lot of reports. And in other states as well. I mean, they're like up in Wisconsin, you've got the Kettle Moraine Forest. There's a lot of strange things that go on up there. The Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts, like you stated. I mean, there's just a lot of them. The Pine Barrens, and you can name a lot of them.
There's just so many.
Yep.
Now, you've written a few books, and your latest being Alien Disclosure. Can you go a little bit into the book there and let people know a little bit about the book without giving too much away? Because obviously you want people to pick it up.
Well, I've been interested in this for a long time. The alien phenomena has intrigued me for a long time, and quite frankly, it was something that I really didn't get into until around the I don't know, about 2007, 2008. I really started going deep into it because of what people were reporting to me. Mm-hmm. And, I became increasingly apparent to me that we just were not alone. I mean, we weren't the only intelligent species in the cosmic ocean, frankly. Mm-hmm. There was definitely some type of intervention at some point. I had talked to a particular individual by the name of David Eckhart, who I've been working with now for almost a decade. He and his family had experienced some very unbelievable phenomena in relation to these beings. In a thumbnail sketch, I'd say David had been experiencing up to 5 years before I even met him, of abductions coming from his home. There was never any type of spacecraft involved. This portals would open up in his bedroom, and him and the members of his family were abducted. I mean, it was almost like 2 to 3 times a week for many, many years. Why he was chosen, he still doesn't understand that. David was cured of a very debilitating rheumatoid arthritis to the point where they basically conducted a series of surgeries on him on consecutive nights, to where they actually took all his arthritis away. It basically went away. He had the X-rays to prove it. That intrigued me.
I guess so.
So when David started telling me about all of this, and it was interesting because when it first started, he and his wife would be laying in bed at night and they'd hear things moving around. They couldn't figure out what was going on. David thought he had a haunting. Now, they had built this house. David's a contractor, so he had built this house. Mm-hmm. And they started hearing these things moving around. David would basically have a light source near him to where he could turn it on to try to catch it, but it wasn't. He couldn't see anything. So eventually, what he did, he started putting cameras up, and he was filming all this. And I mean, he was taking many hours of film. And of course, when you used to use the old VHS tapes, you don't go on to get about maximum 3 to 4 hours at a time.
Yeah.
So what he eventually did, he got all these tapes together one weekend and started going through all of them. And he was able to find 2 frames on these tapes of a being standing in the doorway of his bathroom.
Wow.
That's where it started. That's when he realized something was going on.
So when you say being, like, have you seen the footage? You've probably seen the footage.
I've got the footage now myself.
Yeah.
And this thing was 2 frames that he looped, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
It looks like a 3.5 foot tall child, but more so like you would say a gray, but it isn't shaped exactly like a gray. It's more humanoid, more human-like. But it was standing in the doorway, and of the master bathroom. So that's when he realized that this thing was, and that's how I got in contact with David, because he put it up on the internet.
Yeah.
And I saw it, and I said, I got to contact this guy because I want to see what's going on here.
Yeah, I guess so.
His story was, I had presented this thing to MUFON here in Florida, because David lived near Pensacola. And I presented it to them, and they didn't want anything to really do about it. They came out for about 10 minutes and never heard back from him. And he was getting very frustrated. So I eventually called him and struck up a conversation. It got to the point where David and I were talking 2 to 3 hours a day for almost 6-7 months. And quite frankly, I didn't really know what was going on. I thought maybe he might be having some haunting activity, that this may have been some type of apparition or something that he picked up. But when it got to the point where these things were destroying his camcorders, they were burning them up. He had to use a medium to film. What he did, he take the camcorder, turn it around, and focus it on one of those corner security mirrors that you see in the stores.
Okay, yeah.
And that's how he would film the room.
That's just crazy. So, did he have any kids? Like any, just obviously for those who are probably a kid or something or whatever.
He had children. He had teenage children.
He had teenage children, but not kids like this, like 3 feet tall or whatever.
No.
That's insane, eh?
Yeah.
That is just insane.
Yeah, and they were actually being taken too, but he was, he was scared to death because he didn't know what they were doing to him, and they would take into a location that he believed was on Earth, an underground location in a cavern of huge cavern of some type. He had also been taken to what he believes was an underwater location as well.
So he was being literally abducted as well.
Oh yeah, he was abducted. Oh yeah, absolutely.
Was it just him, or was it him and his wife?
All 4 of them.
All of the whole family.
The whole family.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, and it's what was interesting was when his daughter grew up and got married. She moved to Houston, Texas, and she started experiencing the same thing there.
Yeah,
and they freaked out. And they moved back, and they lived near David now again. And his son's ex-wife has been experiencing stuff as well, and she has seen some of the things that had going on in David's also. So there are several people that have seen these things. It's an ongoing story. I wrote about it in the book, but it's just ongoing.
just imagine that, you're sleeping and you're woken up, you're hearing stuff, you turn the light on, you can't see anything, and it drives you nuts, and then all of a sudden you decide to start throwing in the camcorders and all this kind of stuff, and all of a sudden, you're capturing this oddity that just is standing in their bathroom doorway. I don't know, man. But that just brings chills to the bones.
Yeah, it's bizarre. I mean, if you go to my YouTube channel, just go to YouTube and put my name, Lon Strickler, into YouTube. Okay. And my videos, I got my radio show on there and stuff, but I got that video.
Oh, the video's there.
Yeah. It's about a minute video where they loop those two together, those two frames together, but you can see the being.
Jeez.
Yeah, and in fact, Fact and Fake, the Paranormal Files, investigated the location.
Oh, wow, okay.
And the guy who was the FBI agent that was the main investigator, Ben Hansen, he and I talked afterwards. Yeah, and he told me, he said, we couldn't debunk any of it. We couldn't debunk any of it. And in fact, here's an interesting story. David had been telling me that when he would be abducted, the next morning he would come outside and there'd be earthworms all over his driveway and sidewalks. It was some type of electrical charge that they brought these things out of the ground, and he'd have to literally take the hose and wash these things off the driveway and the sidewalk onto the street, to the chagrin of his neighbors, quite honestly. And he figured that's what was going on. So when they went to his location, Fact and Fake went there and they set up the van, and the camera van and everything outside. Yeah. And David, they had the cameras in the room, because David had moved from there since then. But he was on the bed, and David says, "I hear piano music." That's another thing. He would hear piano music sometimes. But he said, "I hear piano music, and they're here." And all of a sudden, all the cameras started going haywire. I mean, you can see it on the TV show. They started blanking out. They had trouble for like over 5 minutes. Then everything came back. Everything was fine. Ben Hansen got out of the van because one of the other guys in the team was up in the tree in the front yard, observing the house, and he could see he would watch them through the window as well. And when he got out of the van, there were earthworms everywhere, night crawlers everywhere.
That's insane.
So, and I'll be honest with you, I have had one other person tell me the same story, the same type of phenomena when they've had experiencer encounters. So,
and this is all in your book, right?
Oh yeah, it's all there. Yeah, this is a book I've been wanting to write now for at least 10 years, and
it's out there now.
And I've got a lot of other reports that come to me in there as well.
Wow. That's just an incredible story. I mean, that's just most people would think what's your worst nightmare? You wake up in the middle of the night and there's somebody standing at the foot of your bed in the middle of the night. Just imagine that.
Well, it's happened to me. I'm an experiencer as well.
Oh.
I had several encounters around my wife had cancer, and she had been sick, and that period, that year before she passed away, I was having experiencer encounters. In other words, and there were 2 instances where I would be sleeping, and I'd wake up, and these 3 tall grays would be standing beside me, looking at me. Happened twice. So there was another instance later on, and this is right after she passed away, that I was literally abducted, and I wasn't taken on any type of craft that I know of, but I was taken to a location and shown a lot of video. It was like video-like scenarios, but I was shown some different things that they wanted me to see. And there was these 3 tall grays. And I've got that experience in the book as well.
Wow, that's incredible. Now the location, was it familiar or?
Yeah. No, it was a very benign area. It was almost like I was standing in, it was dark, but there was like this lighted screen in front of me. And it was almost like it was in real time, but it wasn't. It was a historical scenario of an early intervention they had in the area around the Nile Delta Valley and in Egypt.
Wow, that's
in the
that's
12th and 13th millennia BCE. Like I said, it's written in a book, and things they told me. It was a strange encounter. It was something I'll never forget. It was something I really started looking into after I had the encounter, and it really changed how I thought of history, or how we are connected to these beings as the human species.
Yeah, and once again, folks, that's Alien Disclosure, written by Lon Strickler, and you can get that pretty much anywhere, right, Lon? Like Amazon and stuff like that.
It's Alien Disclosure: Experiences Exposed Reality, and you can get it on Amazon. Just put my name, Lon Strickler, in search, and it'll be there. Oh, if you go to my website, phantomsandmonsters.com, I have links there that you can get to it as well.
Is there anything else you want to get out there? Because we're almost at the end of the show, and we're pretty much there. It's amazing how quickly 2 hours go.
Yeah, it does kind of quickly. It's just so much I've been involved with over the years, and it, like I said, like anything else, if you didn't enjoy doing it, you wouldn't do it. And also, I've got a radio show, Arcane Radio, that is live every Friday night at 9:00 p.m. Eastern. That's on ParanormalKing.com. And like I said, all my books are on Amazon. And if you go to phantomsandmonsters.com, you can sign up for the free daily newsletter to come in your email. It's everything I write goes into that newsletter.
And once again, if you can throw me an audio clip, and we'd be happy to play it here for you during our commercials. So, Lon, it's been great to have you on the show.
Well, thanks for having me.
Really, really enjoyed everything. Great, and you know what? We'd love to have you back on in the future.
All you gotta do is call me or email me.
Email you. Skype you or whatever, right? All right, Lon, you take care.
Thank you. You take care as well.
Take care, Lon.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good night, Lon. Night. Oh, I think we lost everybody. I think it's just me. Is there? I think we lost everybody. There, let's get Alex back here. Hey, Alex.
Hey.
We lost everybody.
That's all right.
We're live anyways. You still there?
I'm still here.
Oh, there you go. Anyways, I want to thank Lon Strickler for coming on tonight. What did you think about that story?
It's a really good story.
That's
really interesting story. Now I gotta get out and get that book.
Yeah, I know. I'm definitely thinking about grabbing the book too, man. That's definitely pretty eerie. I mean, the thought of waking up and something weird happening, unfolding like that, and you don't know. You just know something's going on, and you go through great lengths to trying to figure it out, and then all of a sudden, some video footage, bang.
I know.
This eerie little.
Not enough having an intruder, but to have something like that, I should say.
I mean, that's a lot of people's worst nightmares. You wake up in the middle of the night and there's this figure standing at the foot of your bed or beside you or whatever. You're like, what the hell?
Exactly.
What's going on? But anyways, wow. In case you're just tuning in, obviously, we talked to Lon Strickler, and again, check out his website, phantomsandmonsters.com. His blog has been 14 years he's been.
That's a great website. Great resource.
It's awesome. There's so many great stories and witness tales and whatever. Check it out. And again, check out his books at his website, or you can type in Lon Strickler at Amazon or wherever you grab your books or whatever. I'm sure they'll have. Well, I know Amazon has them because I was looking on Amazon at the books. So, wow. Here we are, season 12, folks.
Yep.
Season 12, we've kicked it off. Expect some more guests and some cool shows coming up in the very near future. Once again, what is it? 2 weeks that you'll be away?
In 2 weeks, I'll be leaving, yeah.
Yeah, but you'll be gone for 2 weeks. So 2 weeks we won't be broadcasting, I guess, right?
That's right.
Yeah, you'll be away. You'll be gallivanting in the Highgate Cemetery.
I'm hoping to.
You're hoping to, yeah. But anyways, once again, I want to thank Lon for joining us this evening, and I absolutely would love to have him back on the show because, the guy's got so many tales.
Oh yeah, after all those years, for sure.
And when you look at his blog, you'll know what we're talking about. I mean. Every encounter, well, not every encounter, but a shitload of encounters, may they be UFO and alien or paranormal or cryptozoology, Bigfoot, you name it. It's just...
it's all there.
It's all there.
Yeah.
Phantomsandmonsters.com. Once again, his name is Lon Strickler. So, there you go. I think that's pretty much it for this evening, buddy.
Yeah, I think so.
We're back. We're fueled up, right? We had our burrito traditional burrito festival.
That's right.
How was
and we both survived. That's a good thing.
We both survived. Actually, it didn't hit me as bad as I thought it would.
Same here.
Oh man, considering mine, I don't know. Well, you put some hot sauce on yours too, right?
I did. Yeah.
Did you put some jalapenos?
I did not.
I had jalapenos on.
That's your problem.
Yeah, I know. It was my problem, but like I said, I didn't think. Thankfully, it didn't hit me as bad as I thought it would.
That's good.
So, anyways, until next Sunday night, folks. Thank you for tuning in, and once again, thanks Lon Strickler for joining us this evening. Season 12 is in full gear, and we'll see you next Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the New Visions Radio Network. Take care, everyone. Until next Sunday, that is all.
Have a good night.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve, Jenny, and it's